All right, hey, what's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about emergency pressure dressings, or what I like to call them Israeli bandages. And some of you may or may not know what that is. If you've been in the military for any length of time, you more than likely know what an Israeli bandage is. But today I'm going to break one out of my IFAC and show you guys how it works and why you'd use one. So, common term, IFAC. This is an individual first aid kit. Some people call these blowout kits, some people call them trauma kits. When I'm talking to civilians, I say trauma kit. Are there first aid supplies in this kit? Yes, but this is for trauma, because you are usually the first responding person to use a trauma kit for trauma-related incidents like bleeding, lacerations, broken bones. I'm going on a little tangent, so I'll digress a little bit and open this thing up. So I said trauma kit. The first thing I see when I look inside my trauma kit is a cat tourniquet for bleeding, severe bleeding, and is an emergency compression bandage or an Israeli dressing. That's the first two things that I'm going to want to grab, because this is if it's arterial bleeding and is bright red, squirting everywhere, and this is if it is not. So I want to make sure that I have the most emergent supplies available in my IFAC first, or trauma kit. So there's a couple of ways to use this guy, and I'm going to talk about the main one, which for me is going to be as a pressure dressing. That means if you have a wound and you need to apply pressure, free up some hands and throw some pressure dressing on it. Let's open this guy up. So this is an Israeli dressing, but it's not labeled as an Israeli dressing. So that means you can go out and buy something that says emergency compression bandage and know that you're probably getting the same product. One thing I will tell you is that you look for these red tabs when you open this up, and that will indicate where you tear, because unlike a cat tourniquet, you're probably not going to stage this. You're going to want to keep this inside its sealed package. If some of you disagree, please tell me in the comments and tell me why. But we're going to roll this thing out here, and this is a non-adherent pad that's going to help basically cover your wound. And this is a pretty large area, if I'm going to be honest with you. So a decent sized cut or laceration or incision wound even would be able to likely be covered by this. This is really just a big bandage, right? So that's what you would put on the wound. All right, so we're gonna act like there's a wound here, or I could just cut her. Kidding, but we're gonna take this white part, again, the non-adherent pad, stick it onto the wound. It's kind of difficult for the forearm here, I guess, but you're gonna basically just apply that pressure. This is where you're gonna have the most amount of pressure. I know it's gonna feel uncomfortable for most people, and it usually does, especially when you're putting this plastic piece down on their wound, but that is what's applying pressure. But while you're applying pressure, you're simply gonna put the rest of the bandage inside and then tighten it up like so. That's gonna continue to add pressure. So now what you're doing is not only putting pressure on the wound, but you're also covering this up, right? So this does two things. And you would just go and keep going and going and going until you run out of bandage, and then it would just basically... All right, so you're gonna get to the end of your Israeli bandage or dressing here, and it's gonna have this bar. That's what keeps the pressure in place here. Do you feel a lot of pressure on your arm?
Unfortunately.
All right, so that would be good in a medical or trauma setting. So that, again, just kind of locks it in here. It's this plastic bar that keeps it from loosening it up. Another thing that this could be used for is if you were to wound pack for like a bullet wound, for instance. Obviously, you're gonna put gauze. Obviously, you're gonna stuff gauze into a wound if you have like a deep wound, or like a gunshot wound, for instance. But once you've filled that wound up with whatever gauze you're using, you can actually use that Israeli bandage or pressure bandage over top of your wound pack and keep that pressure there until you get them to the hospital, right? But these are typically for your larger wounds. So I would say it's like secondary to that of a tourniquet. Obviously you can't use it in lieu of a tourniquet, but if you have nothing at all, this is better than this is better than nothing if you have nothing at all. So that's just the real gist of an emergency bandage, or an Israeli bandage, as some may call it. And if you guys are interested at all in an IFAK that's maybe put all together, I'm thinking about putting some on my website. They'll be already put together, and they would be in a headrest trauma kit, or you could just get it as a Mali IFAK. So if you guys want to see a video of what is in my trauma kit, I've got one on my channel here, but it's been updated since, so maybe I'll make another one later on. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something today. It's Lethal Engagement Solutions, and check me out on Instagram, Facebook, and check out the website for holsters and Kydex needs. Thanks for watching.
Do you not want the flash on?
How good does it look?
It makes it look better.
All right, what's up, bitches?